All right, welcome to Smokey Reacts. I'm your boy journalist, and on this one, I wanted to do this for the simple fact that this is apparently the first time that you guys have ever had somebody's verdict read out in court for TV. I was like, I gotta tap into that. Sorry for this guy. Apparently, I already skipped it because I was like watching it, and then I seen that white wig. I was like, oh, I have to ask questions. I have to ask questions. So I paused it, turned everything on, and I was like, yo, gotta let y'all know. There is a trigger warning beforehand. But let's get into this. But we are here for educational purposes because I was just like, I've never seen, literally, we just watched Johnny Depp. Like, we've been, OJ Simpson, we've been televising niggas' downfalls and criminal cases for years. So to find out that you guys are just not doing it is crazy to me. So if you could please hit that like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me, and let's get into this one. I kick off the doors. Oh my god. Did this remix the fucking Slow Ties Tea and Biscuits? Mental.
When you carried out the killing and are now aged.
All right, so let's start with this. Those chairs have to be fucking super expensive. Does anybody know who makes them or how much they cost? Secondly, why do they not update the wigs? Like, is there like a nostalgia thing? Like, my nigga who put me in this thing, he wore this wig and we've been passing them bitches down. Or what's the situation with this? Because these just, there's so many like quality helmets that you could have, and that's the helmet you have to sentence a nigga to jail. I feel like you're taking the piss and like disrespecting me by like I have to wear like a suit if I come in this room and all these other fucking things. But you get to wear that fucking wig. That shit's worse than a Tyler Perry movie. This shit is not okay. Besides that, why do they dress the way that they dress? Why is everybody playing a wrestler? Like, why is it not modernized or updated in any fashion? Could you please let me know that? Yeah. All right, let's go.
Ben Oliver, you are here today to be sentenced for the unlawful killing of your 74-year-old grandfather,
The cunt.
David Oliver. You were 23 when you carried out the killing and are now aged 25. On the 14th of January of this year, you pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. You were tried and acquitted.
You can get diminished responsibility at 23? That's some shit we give little niggas. Like, maybe, like, it'd be a stretch to give it to a nigga at 18. Because we're already trying to try niggas as adults as fucking 13-year-olds and shit.
Acquitted of murder by a jury on the 25th of May. By a jury. You were tried and acquitted of murder by a jury.
So, man, how are we back here? Do you guys not have double jeopardy in your country? Does that not work? Because she said he was tried and then he was acquitted. How the fuck am I back in court? Like, literally, if OJ wanted to admit to killing old girl today, there's literally nothing they can do. You cannot retry him. They've already sued him civilly. They didn't get no money from him from that. Like, there's literally nothing you can do in America once you try a nigga and lose the case. And I mean like an actual, like an acquittal. And if, especially if they fucking give you an acquittal and fucking it's been dismissed with prejudice, oh my God. Good luck, buddy.
On the 25th of May. The facts upon which I am to sentence you are these. Your grandfather, David, and grandmother, Susan,
rest in peace,
married in 1966. They
do all of this pageantry? Oh my God. How often does a nigga say, yeah? Well, you know what? I heard that story from Specs, about how the fucking judge did that nigga for fucking, I'm gonna say a hit and run, just make it simple. And then, oh yeah, you can't chat shit to these people. They'll fuck your life up. You can chat shit to our judges. They'll, like, you might not even get nothing. That nigga be like, all right.
Had a biological son together, and then in 1977, they adopted your mother, Stephanie, when she was aged 10.
Damn.
Stephanie has a history of severe physical and mental ill health. and has spent much of her adult life in hospital. However, in 1996, when she was aged 20, she became pregnant by a man called James, and you were born in 1997.
Thanks for telling me how I
You
got here,
had
bitch.
a congenital hearing impediment. Your biological father left your mother shortly after your birth, and your mother formed a relationship with a man called Steve.
Why she keep saying
They
called
had
instead of
2
named?
daughters together. Steve was extremely cruel to you. He
Fucking
was
weirdo.
physically violent, and you were subjected to a sexualized environment and introduced to child pornography at
What
the
the
age of
fuck?
5. You were also sexually
This shit about to get me
assaulted by a neighbor.
demonetized on this one.
When you were 13, your mother videoed Steve assaulting you. The police were involved, and that resulted in your mother and Steve separating.
She didn't go to jail too? She gotta go to jail too? She let that nigga do that shit? What the fuck?
You also had a very difficult time at school due to your deafness, and you were the victim of severe bullying. You were diagnosed with autism at a young age and went to school for autistic children, but you did not thrive there. Your behaviour deteriorated further when your mother became involved in a same-sex relationship.
Oh, this is a big deal. Cause this is it Old Bailey? This is Crown Court? This nigga in trouble.
You were in and out of care and irreparably damaged by your early childhood experiences and by your learning disabilities. Throughout your childhood and adult life, you had a very strong and positive relationship with your maternal grandparents. You loved and love your nan very much, and she loved and still loves you. Her evidence at your trial was compelling and informative. You clearly displayed many of the recognised features of autistic spectrum disorder, and you lacked the ability to show empathy to others, with the exception of your nan and, to some extent, your granddad, until shortly before his death. When you were 15 and 16, you sexually abused a very young female child, and in September 2016, you received a 6-year custodial sentence for a number of offences, including rape and an offence of in possession of indecent images of children.
We let this nigga back out on the streets. How, blood? How? I just don't get it. You take the non-bread, you go to jail for life. Or we can give you a bullet. It's like, it just makes it super simple. Super simple. Also, I feel like a life sentence is, if you don't believe a life sentence is fucking like, I'm not gonna say cruel and inhumane punishment, but very cruel punishment. Read a short story called The Bet. And then let's have a chat.
I pause there to record my firm view, as supported by the psychiatric evidence, that the offending in which you were involved was learned from your own childhood experiences, and your lack of empathy or understanding was exacerbated by and rooted in your autism. You have no other convictions. However, you were on licence from that sentence when you killed your grandfather.
She said he got no other convictions. Like, the prior convictions wasn't rape and various other charges, but most importantly, the rape. Like, what are you doing, bitch? It don't make no goddamn sense. And then to insinuate that a motherfucker's actions are learned behaviors at this level is just wild to me. That's just a very umbrella statement that a lot of people that don't add nuance to a conversation are gonna run off with. And this is how we'll say the alphabet boys get looked at, like, oh, well, you're an alphabet boy. Well, then you've probably been fucking diddled by a pedo or some shit. And it's like, oh my God. Are we on the schoolyard? Like, what are we doing here? These people have existed for fucking millennia, but all of a sudden they got diddled on the schoolyard in the last 30 years. Niggas don't get on my face with this fucking weird shit. Oh, it's so lazy to think like this. What is she doing?
Days before you were sent to custody in 2016, your grandfather had a stroke which left him paralysed, save for the partial use of his right side.
If it comes out that he killed that nigga because his fucking granddaddy was fucking doing bad, oh yeah, this is some nuance to a case that just like he shouldn't have been back outside after that R charge. But if he did this is one of those like, well, was it a mercy joint or like were you doing it to be malicious and fucking weird? Because if it's a mercy joint and you're autistic, it's like, oh, there's levels there. There's levels there. And then how do we all feel about motherfucking like mercy killings? Meaning like if a nigga's doing bad, like do we let the nigga just kick on? Like what is quality of life? That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of nuance to this. What actually happened?
He was largely bedbound and looked after by your grandmother, supported by daily carers.
Shout out
While
to the
you were
man.
serving your sentence, you were the victim of violence at the hands of other prisoners. You were prescribed medication for your autism and depression whilst you were in custody. You were released on licence in September 2019. While you were still in custody, allegations came to light that your grandfather had himself committed child sex offences.
Oh my
Both your
God.
mother and your uncle expressed a serious desire and formed intent to kill your grandfather and had to be dissuaded by your grandmother from doing so.
Lord Jesus. What the fuck is going on in this family? The stepdaddy, he's a nonce. The fucking grandfather, he's a nonce. What is going on? This is just Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
From that time, your nan lost all respect for her husband, who'd also been
So what, last 2-3 years you lost respect for this nigga? He died at 70 something? Like, come on, man. Look again. You painting this lady like she was like, at least to me, you marry a bird, you doing some weird shit like that, you're for sure like, man, unless he's moving like BTK, that bird is complicit in some way. I don't see how it happens.
cruel to her.
You did it to the kid you adopted and your actual biological kid. How does the mom not know? I don't know. I'm just saying. I feel like it's nah. In making this statement about before we sentence him, I feel like this is an area we should have just left out because there's a lot of gray area there if we actually think about it. Like, come on now. Like, do we really want to paint her like she's just the best kind of person? Like, she could be morally bankrupt just like the rest of them, but shit, she didn't do anything to anybody physically, so she may feel like she's perfectly fine. You're still a bad person if you knew and didn't do shit. Like, the day you found out you didn't stab that nigga, you're a sucker. I don't get it. I don't get it.
And unfaithful during their marriage. Upon your release, you were given a flat about 7 miles away from where your grandparents lived. Initially, you were very house-proud and you did very well until the pandemic hit. You later found out about the allegations of sexual abuse involving your grandfather, and you told your nan that you could not love him anymore, and that indeed you hated him. However, at that stage, you did not exhibit any violence towards him, nor express any desire to do so. COVID hit you very hard. You became obsessive about catching the virus and behaved in very extreme ways in order to avoid doing so. You also became paranoid about infecting your grandparents and avoided contact with them. Your mental health deteriorated as a result because you were isolated and separated from your grandmother. On Christmas Eve 2020, you went to your grandmother's house and asked her to help you to commit suicide by providing for you an overdose of tablets. You said that you wanted to die in her arms. She comforted you and she dissuaded you. You stayed at your grandparents' house for Christmas, but then returned to your flat on the 27th of December. From that date onwards, you would speak to your nan on the phone 3 or 4 times every hour.
Jesus Christ.
On the 6th of January of 2021, you rang your nan again, intent on killing yourself. She tried to persuade you not to do so, but you called the RSPCA and asked them to collect your pet ferret, telling the operator that you were
What is the RSPCA? I know what the ASPCA is. It's for sure the same thing, but is your R for royal? I feel like the R has got to be for royal because you guys love to do that shit, like the Royal Air Force and shit. Like, come on, blood. It's the Air Force. Especially because you guys don't really fuck with the monarchy like that as well. But shout out to the Queen. What is this, like her Platinum Jubilee or some shit?
going to commit suicide.
Yo, yo. Hold on, time out. Back on up. Did you guys see that shit about fucking... what's the... Not fucking the one that's married to Meghan Markle. The other nigga. That son. Did you hear? Potentially. This is all rumors. Allegedly. Don't come get me for nothing. But they got a fucking thing going around talking about he's stepping out on the bird because he likes to be the bird. And I guess she's not down with treating him like a bird. And I'm like, one, why would you want that to happen to you? But two, why they just put my niggas' business out in the street like this? This is wild. Like, it's like 0 to 100. It's like, yeah. They just got snubbed in Jamaica, in the Caribbeans. Next thing I find out about this nigga, he likes to get bent over. He's the one doing the bending.
The operator noted that you were speaking most bizarrely and making very little sense. That call was recorded and the jury heard the nature of the things which you were saying, which were psychotic in nature. Of particular concern is your assertion in that call that you'd been looking at child pornography and had exposed yourself. On that occasion, you were taken to hospital, but due to your autism, you did not understand that you were expected to stay there, and instead you took a taxi to your nan's house. She wanted you to stay with her, but you went back to your flat because of concern for your pet. You were in no fit state to be left unsupervised. Your nan said that by then, quotes, we all knew he wasn't well and tried to get him an appointment, close quotes. On the 14th of January, you attempted suicide again, firstly by trying to hang yourself and then by drinking bathwater contaminated with bleach. You were taken to accident and emergency.
This is... No. That's a little too dark. We're already
But released.
We're already in the darkness.
Your nan described you on that day as, quotes, absolutely tormented. You were only relaxed if you could lie next to your nan and hold her arm. Your medication was increased, and your home treatment team was then changed from the team which had been looking after you near your flat to the one near your grandparents. From the 15th of January, you never left your nan's address again until your arrest for murder. You spent your days with your nan and continued to speak about demons who were out to get you. At about this time, your mother told you that she would not have peace until your grandfather was dead. You also knew by then how
This is... Why do... I'm going to say we, because we do this in America too as well. We made that man into a meme. That, God damn it, I do. That nigga in Florida with the dreadlocks, like, you could tell he was mentally unfit to stand trial. Why waste the money of convicting and trying him when we need to just put his ass in the motherfucking, like, I would say psych ward for lack of a better word, because I know that's not a mental hospital. That's what the fucking word is called now. Yeah, so we need to put that man in a mental hospital. Don't waste my fucking tax dollars trying this nigga. That's hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars for one guy that you want to parade out for a TV fucking just spectacle. That's what it costs us over here. So I'm just imagining that price tag for this shit. If all these things she's saying are the facts of the situation, my nigga talking about demons, he's autistic. It's actually not just a plot to fucking beat a murder later, but my nigga's just loopy. Why'd you waste my money trying this nigga? What are we doing here? Why are we allowing this to fucking happen? There's real niggas that need to be tried. We about to waste money holding this nigga in fucking jail when we need to waste money holding his ass in a psych ward. What are we doing here? What the fuck is going on?
Unhappy he had made your grandmother. On the 18th of January, you watched a film with your nan about an abused orphan and texted your mother about the effect that film had had upon you. On the morning of the killing, the 19th of
Insightful son, to have watched the fucking movie like that and be like, yo, I gotta reach out to my mom. Let me holler at you, Marge. What's going on?
January, the carers came as usual to see to your grandfather's needs. When they had gone, your nan took him a biscuit and a cup of coffee. That was the last time she saw him alive. She noted that you were jittery and couldn't rest. You asked to lie down next to her, which you did. However, when she got up, you then went downstairs. It was about 11:30 or 11:45 that morning. You selected a knife from the kitchen and you went to your grandfather's room. You then cut his throat repeatedly with severe force. You stabbed his mouth so that he could not cry out and his eyes so that he couldn't look at you as you killed him.
Did he say these things, or these are the inferences of the actions that we can get from an autopsy? Because if we're doing a lot of inferring here, like, chill out with this shit. Like, what are you doing? You don't know what that nigga. He could just been stabbing a nigga. Talking about, oh, so he couldn't look at him. That nigga, but what if he wasn't thinking about that?
He tried in vain to protect himself by raising his right arm. He was utterly powerless. There were a total of 21 stab wounds to the face, 7 to the torso, and obvious defence injuries. He died very quickly of massive blood loss. Following the killing, you told your nan what you had done, saying, quotes, "He can't hurt you anymore, Nan." You also texted your mother saying, quotes, "Mum, I've killed Grandad. I love you."
Why do we waste money on this? This nigga's clearly loopy. This is ridiculous.
Your nan called 999 and you sat with her. At one point, you went upstairs and sat on the windowsill. I'm satisfied that you had it in mind to jump to your death, but your nan persuaded you to come in and you calmly sat with her until the police arrived. You were entirely cooperative. Your nan told the police, quotes, "We all wanted to kill him," close quotes. That was a reference to your granddad. While you were in custody before your trial, there were numerous mental health assessments which resulted in a divergence of opinion as to the true nature and extent of your mental illness. The psychiatrists instructed on your behalf for your trial had access to all your records and had greater expertise in determining the true position. In the light of the jury's verdict, I propose to proceed on the basis that the defence experts, Dr. Cumming and Dr. Coe, were correct in their diagnosis of autistic spectrum disorder, depression and adjustment disorder, the latter as a result of finding out about the allegations of sexual abuse by the deceased. Their view was that your diagnosed medical conditions substantially impaired your ability to form a rational judgment. You did not think that there was an alternative to killing your granddad. You did not think about the consequences and did not have the skills to manage conflict or to see the bigger picture due to your obsessional and tunnel vision. On the other hand, you did understand that you were killing your granddad and had decided to do so. This is a complex sentencing exercise. Firstly, I have to apply the Sentencing Council guideline for this type of manslaughter. I begin by assessing the level of responsibility which you retained for the killing. There are 3 levels: high, medium, and lower. I have decided that the level of responsibility retained by you was towards the very top of the medium level range, noting that there is an overlap between that range and the range for a high level of retained responsibility. I take that view because, unlike some cases of this kind, you were not psychotic. Your autism was defined as significant but not severe. You made the determined decision to kill your granddad, and you carried out the killing in a ferocious but controlled way, making conscious decisions to attack his eyes and mouth, knowing that you were killing him.
That is a more apt description of his fucking actions. Conscious decisions to do X thing. This is where I'm like, okay, now you got me back on why we might be convicting a nigga. All right.
And why you were doing so. The relevance of your mental abnormality is that which was articulated by the psychiatrist called on your behalf, as I have set out above. As the author of the pre-sentence report states, quotes, because of your past experiences, you did not have the resilience or skills to cope with these disclosures, and your emotional well-being plummeted. For all those reasons, I take a starting point for sentence of 24 years imprisonment. I then have to turn to consider aggravating factors.
We gonna give him more time?
1, the vulnerability of your bed-bound elderly grandfather. 2, the physical suffering inflicted upon him. 3, your previous offending. And 4, the fact that you were on license.
Why do I feel like if I was to go to court over there, it would be on some Captain Jack Sparrow type shit? Because the way that she's talking, you guys be accounting for all kind of shit we don't account for in motherfucking America. Like, the fact he's on license, we account for that shit. The fact his grandfather was in an impaired state and could not defend himself, and the level of veracity in his attack, with his diminished mental state, we're not even covering that. We don't even give a fuck. A nigga did the murder. The fact he even has fucking manslaughter on the table is crazy. But the fact she gives a nigga manslaughter and then gives him essentially the same numbers you get for a motherfucking murder, why do we even give him manslaughter? We should just charge the nigga for fucking murder. What the fuck are we doing? We just took 6 years off of it because the nigga might fucking have autism. What is she doing? The sentencing over there, I promise you, everybody that watches me, we're friends. I don't want no problems. I'm not trying to go to jail. Never over there. I'd never want to deal with nothing fucking like that over there. That shit is wild. I'm not getting caught up in none of that fuck shit. That shit crazy.
In relation to mitigation, I firstly point out that your abnormality of mental functioning has already been accounted for in the reduction of the offence from murder to manslaughter. However, there is considerable additional mitigation in relation to your upbringing, your experiences as a child, and the fact that other members of your family, to your knowledge, wanted and on 2 occasions set out to kill your grandfather due to the unproven allegations made against him. Of further significance is your recent discovery that he had hurt your beloved grandmother. In addition, it is to your credit that you have always accepted your guilt and told the truth about what you did and why. You have also expressed remorse, telling the probation officer, quotes, "I've just made it worse, made the pain greater." There was ample evidence that you had tried to seek help for your mental health problems and had done well whilst on licence. It is unfortunate that the professionals did not identify the risk posed by you remaining in the community, and particularly by placing you with your grandparents. Dr. Cumming has provided an addendum report which confirms that a hospital order is not an option in your case. He describes you as a very damaged man who will require psychological work in the longer term. In my view, the mitigating factors balance out the aggravating factors so that I do not add to the notional term of 24 years. I then have to consider dangerousness. The probation officer has accurately set out the relevant considerations, and I agree with her assessment and the reasons for it. In my judgment, you do present a significant risk to the public occasioned by the commission of further specified offences, due firstly to your previous serious offending, secondly the fact that there is evidence that you have a continuing interest in illegal pornography, thirdly the suddenness of your deterioration, and fourthly the seriousness and ferocity of the attack upon your grandfather. You therefore fit the criteria for a dangerous offender. Section 285 of the Sentencing Act 2020 provides that as I have determined you meet the dangerousness criteria, I then have to decide.
I'd also like to point out that I can tell you guys are new to this shit. Unless there's certain rules you guys have for what can be filmed, if like only the magistrate can be filmed. Okay, because in America, boy, you putting a camera on him, some bitch in the crowd to see what she done fucking thought about what this lady's saying, all kind of shit. Zooming in on this nigga face, like, yeah, nigga, how's that feel? You about to go to fucking jail, boy. Like, we do. I watched. I wish I was doing this shit at the time, but I had sat and watched like it was quality premium television when that boy Jussie Smollett fucking got sentenced. Cause it was quality premium television. The camera angles, the faces. But if anything happens, I didn't do it to me. I'm not suicidal. I didn't do this. Oh, brother. Take your ass in the back. That shit was great television. But I'm watching this shit and I'm like, I've only seen her fucking face and her just shitting on this nigga for the longest time. What are we doing here? This shit's so drawn out. Oh my. Every nigga gotta go through this. No wonder we fucking taking forever to fucking get through shit. You taking like 45 minutes to chastise a nigga.
Whether the seriousness of the offence of manslaughter is such as to justify the imposition of imprisonment for life. If I do conclude that it does, I then must impose such a sentence. In your case, I do consider that the seriousness of the offence justifies a life sentence, and that is the sentence I must therefore impose upon you. I have already determined that the notional determinate term would be 24 years before credit for your plea of guilty. In my view, you deserve full credit for your plea of guilty, which was entered at the first reasonable opportunity after you were deemed fit to plead. That plea reduces the notional determinate term to one of 16 years. In setting the minimum term which you must serve before you can be considered for release by the parole board, I must adopt a term which is 2/3 of the notional determinate term, which in this case gives 10 years and 8 months. Would you stand up, please?
So he got a dime for clipping his granddaddy because his granddaddy was a nonce and he's a nonce too, and he could not abide it. He couldn't abide by that because the nonce that he knows hurt the people that he holds most dear in his life. The levels of fuckery.
The sentence I pass upon you is therefore one of life imprisonment with a minimum term of 10 years and 8 months. From that term will be deducted the term you have spent on remand, which is 553 days. That deduction results in a term of 9 years and 63 days. Those numbers can be amended administratively if my calculation is incorrect. Once you have served that term, you will be entitled to apply for parole. However, you will not be released by the parole board unless they conclude that you no longer pose a risk to the public. If you are released, you will remain on licence for the rest of your life. I impose the appropriate surcharge. That concludes these sentencing remarks.
The appropriate surcharge. We charging this nigga for sending him to jail? What's that mean? That's a term or phrase in a judicial setting I've never heard.
He may go down. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this was wild as all get out. What the fuck? I wanted to, even though it's crazy as shit, the particular situation, you guys, I just thought it was fascinating as an American that you guys have never done this. And then now that I know that, like, that boy at the Crown Court, yeah, oh Bailey, nigga, that's your ass. Yeah, boy, shit, this is crazy. But yeah, that's gonna be it. This is probably long at this point. If anybody watches it, thank you. I really do appreciate it because this was really just purely fascination that you guys don't do this shit more more often. I think most court cases should be televised. Now, it should only be televised after we have a sitting jury, though, because I don't want the jury pool tainted by getting extra access to the information prior. However, after we have a sitting jury, shit, boy, put that shit on TV. We need to know what niggas is out here doing. I need to know. Like that Giselle fucking lady that fucking was old boys fucking. She was helping that nigga. I guess fucking. I'm gonna say kidnap bitches because I don't have time for it. So yeah, they was kidnapping bitches and taking them to private islands with presidents and all type of people. Yeah, the Jeffrey Epstein nigga. There we go. So yeah, Giselle and Jeffrey, them motherfuckers. That case should have been televised. The fuck. But yeah, that'd be it for me. See you on the next one. I'm out of here.